The early to mid 2000s, just about becoming retro now. And rightly so, because it was a glorious time. Over the past couple of years, more and more people have looked back over the PS2, Xbox and Gamecube library, and they've found so much variety. Of course, there's the big acclaimed titles that everybody knows, your Icos, Fatal Frames, Eternal Darknesses, all that stuff. But there are just so many hidden gems out there. This was a time when consoles were pretty much totally on top, and there was still lots of experimenting going on. And then of course there were your AAA titles, which didn't really show any of that. There were plenty of average FPS games flying around and an absolute crap ton of what quickly became known as GTA clones, games that ripped off Rockstar's trailblazing series willy-nilly. And this was long before any such games actually even came close to catching up. To be honest, it wasn't until Saints Row came along that anybody did. Before then you had games like The Getaway, Scarface The World Is Yours, The Godfather, oh and let's not forget Driver 3. Some of these games do have merit of course, but all were mainly inspired by wanting to get a slice of that big old GTA pie. And for this, the first of what could well be many PS2 based quickies, I've got a GTA clone right here. True Crime Streets of LA, a 2003 game by Activision. Why pick this? Well, before looking at any of the actually creative stuff, I want to get a picture of bog-standard AAA gaming in 2003. Not the best, not the worst. And hell, I remember playing this and having quite a bit of fun with it back in the day, even if, I always knew it wasn't that great. So let's rewind back a decade and see how it fares. Jeez, a decade? Where the hell does the time go? The main gimmick of True Crime is that, simply put, it's GTA except you're playing as a cop. Technically, you're on the right side of the law. Practically, this means that you can do just about anything you want and the other cops won't even bat an eyelid. Okay, you might just get kicked out of the police force if you, say, gun down about 100 civilians in a row, but as long as you stop a street fight or rescue an old lady's bag now and then, you'll be good to go. So yeah, that's the sort of level we're on here. This is not serious business gaming. It's from the days when people could still say, well, it's got an 18 rating on it, and keep a straight face even though the game was clearly marketed at 13-year-olds. This bleeds into the story too. You play as Nick Can, and you just might be the least likeable character in the whole history of video games. His character is, simply put, asshole. On his first day in the Elite Operations Division, he harasses and belittles his new partner and ends up getting her shot, has an unfunny smartass quip for everything, and deals with all problems by shooting them repeatedly with dual-wielded pistols. And this is the guy we're supposed to be rooting for. I mean, geez, of all the things I wouldn't like to do, I wouldn't like to have a sit down with the guy who devised Nick Can and thought, hey, this character's really cool. Just no, okay, just no. No. There's not exactly much to say about the plot, which is basically Nick Can dealing with triads in LA, and he's motivated because his cop dad went missing some time ago, and he's an asshole. The odd thing though is, Jesus Christ, look at all the freaking stars here. Just count them. The first voice you hear is Christopher Walken's. Michelle Rodriguez appears in a small role. Gary frickin' Oldman is somewhere in this game, and there's a cameo for Snoop Dogg as Snoop Dogg with dog bones dotted throughout the city that, if you collect enough of them, will allow you to play as Snoop Dogg. It's crazy, and kinda because this doesn't often happen so much anymore. These days you're kinda used to the stars of video game voice acting, your Nolan North, Jennifer Hale, Steve Blum and so on. Not many people know these names, but we've become familiar with their voices. So when someone from Hollywood comes in, it's marketed as a big thing. Look at Beyond Two Souls, which put a shitload of its marketing into having Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe on board. If that game was made in 2003, wouldn't bat an eyelid at that shit. Games used to have stars in them all the time. Why? Well, it's what GTA was doing, wasn't it? That probably reached its apex with San Andreas, which not only had a ridiculous all-star cast, but managed to pull brilliant performances out of them as well. Something True Crime doesn't quite manage, but hey-ho. It's also worth noting that when Rockstar decided to move away from having all-star casts pulling out a largely unknown set of voices for GTA 4, everyone else kinda moved away from it too. And so having stars in your game is now actually kind of a big thing once again, whereas back in 2003, well, a company like Activision would think nothing of throwing a couple of million quid at an A-lister just to have them read out a couple of lines. Anyways, with all this general mediocrity in place, why did I bother looking at true crime again? Well, it does do some things quite well. The best thing about true crime is that it's quite a simple sandbox game, to be honest. These weren't the days when sandbox games came with 20 different varieties of activities and submissions. The only side game here is cruising the streets and responding to dispatches. A failed drug bust here, a crazed arsonist there, drug drivers, drive-by shootings, and so on. And guess what? Yeah, doing this is a hell of a lot more fun than actually playing the story. It gets you right to the heart of the action. If you want a quick car chase or a shootout or whatever, it's all right there and just open to you. In that sense, I guess it's kinda got a similar appeal to Spider-Man 2, even if the game's nowhere near as good. The game has some okay mechanics for this sort of thing as well. The car control's a bit oversensitive, but the controls for shooting are excellent. You get slow motion precision aim as well as basic lock-on stuff, and you can do other neat things like firing warning shots, a Max Payne-esque slow motion dive, shooting while driving. Taking out the tyres is always neat. The shooting is in fact the only place where true crime manages to beat the champ. GTA at the time was a lot more workmanlike on the shooting front, whereas this has so much more variety and style about it. Oh, and you also get some physical combat. The game quite likes its kung fu, allowing you to pull off a whole load of neat combos and special moves and what have you. Bit of a Shenmue influence here, I'm thinking. So yeah, actually fooling around in the game is still enjoyable. It's the main reason why I played the game in the first place, you know, because honestly, I barely bothered with the story after too long. Doing this is just more fun. Why should I sit and watch an asshole do asshole things when I can just do the asshole things instead? And it's kind of refreshing to play this more simple type of sandbox game. These days I always find myself overcome by the ridiculous amount of shit you can do, and I feel that it's just too damn much a lot of the time. It's all so samey. Unless you're playing Saints Row, of course. True crime may not have a lot of screwing around, but it does what it did effectively, and I enjoy it simply because I can stick it in for a neat little hour of relaxing and busting bad guys. Simple pleasures, you know? And so, as we cruise around Sunset Boulevard, blasting out some glorious early Yorties hip-hop, where does true crime stand exactly? Well, it was a success at the time. It was rated highly by the mags and such, and sold a good few units, meaning that Bobby Kotick could kick back in his bulletproof throne and say, "It's good work, Luxaflux, exemplary. Keep it up." And of course a sequel naturally followed, True Crime New York City, with a different city, obviously, and a different asshole protagonist. Now I've not played this one much, but I know that it gets quite weird, slipping into like the supernatural and having a more ghost dog way of the samurai kind of feel about it. Other than that, it still has the same appeal. It's not brilliant, but there's crude fun to be had with it. However, the game was not successful. It came out in 2005, not long after Grand Theft Auto San Andreas hit. Streets of LA had the fortune of coming out in the lull between Vice City and San Andreas. NYC came out in its wake, and San Andreas made the cheap imitators look like, well, cheap imitators. And so True Crime was cancelled, and the game's developers, Luxaflux, did little of anything worthy of note again. But later on, the abandoned plans for a third True Crime game would blossom into one of the best sandbox games of the last generation, Sleeping Dogs. But you know what? We're going to save that for the next video, the proper one that is. With this quickie, we've dipped our toe in the water a bit with a game quite inspired by movies, particularly of the Asian sort. And so, for the next vid, we're going to be looking at a subgenre of Hong Kong action films, and we're also going to be looking at some of the games heavily inspired by them. It's going to be quite fun, I assure you. Thanks for watching my video. If you really liked it, maybe you could consider pressing the thumbs up icon that's just to the left here. Or maybe you could subscribe to the channel, if you so desire. If you're really crazy, maybe you could also follow me on Twitter, or even support me on Patreon. You know, all the usual stuff. Someone's got to pay the bills. As always, wherever you are, whoever you be, have a good one, take care, and I'll see you next time.